You need a clear online presence that tells your story and helps you stand out from the crowd. Spikeview is revolutionizing how teenagers present themselves and find paths to success. Go to spikeview.com and create your portfolio.
Thank you for interviewing me. My name is Laurie Genevish, and my business is My Ideal College. And what we do is we take teens and college students from doubt to destiny, and at the same time saving parents their time, money, and sanity in the process.
I love that tagline. I'm both a parent and someone who needs to maintain their sanity. So I was going to ask you about the why behind My Ideal College, and that's what everything that you said is a perfect why for a couple of different audiences. One thing that I love about My Ideal College, at least the opening messaging on your website, is you like to tell people a fun fact about life after high school. And that is that research shows that if you have a job that contains at least 75% of what you naturally like to do, you'll be 3 times more successful. And I know this is important for high schoolers to hear. I wish people my age, I wish people that had been working for decades knew this kind of thing and didn't just feel the need to go to a job and punch a clock, that they would actually love what they do and be that much more successful. So a student, if they're thinking this way, they have to reverse engineer their career path before sending out college applications if their interests align with something that requires a degree. So what do students in your work, what are they missing the most in finding a good fit after high school?
The thing that students are missing most in finding a good fit is, one, not doing enough research about careers, reaching out, we're sometimes limited to what's in front of us. And I really encourage teens to take a career assessment. And actually, that's what I do with the teens I work with, because I love career assessments, good ones, that they give you exposure to thousands of jobs, like jobs you never, ever would have dreamt about that you even knew existed. And the other thing that they are also missing out is just going with what mom and dad say, and I know I'm a parent of high schoolers as well, so our kids, especially when our kids don't know what they want to do, we want to guide them. But sometimes kids are afraid to speak up. I've worked with plenty of college students who the parent calls me because they're ready to drop out. And it was because, well, I decided to go for this engineering degree because that's what my mom really wanted me to do. Or that's what my dad really wanted me to do, but I'm finding I really don't like it. And so on. So really, you don't really want to go in as undecided. That is an option for college, but you don't want to go in as undecided for 2 reasons. One, it's getting much more competitive at colleges. And the ones who say, look, I know I want to be a nuclear physicist because I've done career assessments, I've talked to people, I've shadowed people in jobs, and I love your curriculum and program in this, and this is why I want to go to this school. That's going to stand out a lot more than someone who says, well, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to come to your school. The other thing is that research also shows that 2/3 of college grads actually struggle to launch their career. 2/3 struggle to launch their career. The 1/3 that don't struggle knew their major going in, knew it was the right one, and had at least one internship while they were in college. So having that focus is just really going to help teens once they get to college, if college is the right fit for them.
As you're describing that, you're reminding me of my post-high school path. And I ended up going to a university and studying civil engineering, and then never civil engineered anything. I worked in that industry adjacent to engineers, but I didn't go through what you're describing. So I I knew things about myself, and I listened to other people tell me things like, you're good in math, therefore choose one of these paths. So as you're talking about things, the examples you're giving about potential career paths, how much of this is students overlooking the things that they like to do outside of the classroom? For example, I didn't, as a high schooler, I wasn't thinking, I can't wait to be an engineer or to work with engineers. And then later on, as I started working with them, I wasn't thinking, I really love this particular type of technical work. I want to do more. There were all of these other things that, as I worked for years and years, I started to realize this part of my personality influences the type of work I like to do. Or this thing that I like outside of the office influences how I communicate with my coworkers. How much of that do students need to be thinking about? I guess thinking about the whole person that they are, rather than this very specific technical or, you know, whatever the particular career path is that they're looking at. How much needs to be outside of the classroom?
Oh, a lot of it. You know, I mean, jobs are made up of two things. One, your skills and abilities, but then also in regards to these more, you know, behaviors and interests and motivators. That's the other 50% of a job, and ties into that 75%. I'll give you my personal example. So I actually, when I went to school thinking I wanted to be a marine biologist because I love the water and I wanted to make good money. So I'm like, that's a marine biologist. Went to a school that majored in marine biology, started down that path and was like, there's a lot of math involved. I don't like math as much. I hate math more than I love the water. So then I pivoted and I changed my major to communications. And then I found a love for fundraising because I'm so cause motivated. And in my mind, you know, that was to be a fundraiser because in fundraising, you help causes. And I did that for 4 years after college, hated it. And so while cause motivation is needed to be a fundraiser, but also is sales and other parts, you know, working long hours with little to no money, dealing with, you know, volunteers, just all these other behaviors and skills that I didn't think about in that job. And so I was that 24-year-old living at home with a college degree, not knowing what I was going to do with my life.
So thinking on that and this idea that you're reminding me of both anecdotes that I've heard and then also stats over the last couple of years, even pre-COVID-19 issues, where unemployment rates were getting to the point where people with college degrees were making up now more than half of unemployed. And a lot of that people were trying to figure out, well, why is that? Are people going to get the wrong degrees, or does a degree just not matter anymore in the 21st century? And there seemed to be a lot of anecdotal evidence that people in their past had a fork in the road and they just went down the wrong path, like what you're describing. I thought at the time this was the right thing, but maybe they didn't do the right amount of research like you were describing. What's exciting though now is the internet opens up so many opportunities if people are willing to see. And Gen Xers like myself, it's hard for us to let our children think very differently than the very traditional sort of types of careers. So how does a student even know if college is the next best step, or the best next step, I should say, after high school? Thinking again to, they're trying to find that kind of sweet spot that you mentioned about 75%. You want to have the majority of what you're going to do, something that you naturally like to do. So you're not forcing yourself to be motivated and forcing yourself to go to work. So how do they know, in doing their research online, that certain career paths, they really should be pursuing college?
Yeah, I would say, start thinking about what you like. What are tasks you do that you're like, oh, wow, you get started on, you're like, oh, wow, 3 hours have gone by. How did that happen? And, start researching maybe careers that that allow you to do those different things. You know, start talking to people in those career fields. You know, ask your parents who they might know in these career fields, or also you know, friends of parents, or, you know, even on your spikeview profile, you know, see if you can find, say, hey, I'm looking to talk to people in these types of fields. Who do you know? To just learn more about it. The other thing is to, you know, like, you know, people say, oh, Laurie, you help kids find their passion, what they're passionate about. And I say, I help them find their passion with reason. So make sure that the job you want has a future in it, that it's not going to go away, and that it has a salary, you know, to help you. You know, like I was working with a team that, you know, wanted to be or the type of education. I was actually working with a teen who was really going down a certain engineering path, but then found out that he was actually going to have to get his like master's or doctorate in order to get that job. And he was like, oh no, I only want to go to school 4 years. Okay, great. Then let's look at another job. So really thinking of it holistically. Are the jobs going to be out there? Is it going to have the salary you want? And does it have the type of education that you're willing to do? Sort of same along lines with me. It wasn't until I found out, while I was in college, oh, marine biology has a lot. I knew it had some math, but it's a lot more than I realized. So take a look at that course curriculum and see if you're willing to do it.
You're reminding me about, I don't know if you're familiar with the work that Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, has done in this sphere. But one of the things that comes to mind as you're talking is how he describes talent stacking, and this idea of taking, not that any one person is going to be the best in the world at the thing. You might not be the best marine biologist ever, but there are 2, 3, 4 things that you do well and that you enjoy doing. And when stacked together, that makes you pretty special, which is, like you mentioned, the spikeview portfolios or the profiles. That's a nice feature, to be able to look at yourself and say, oh, I didn't realize until I actually wrote it down and visualized it. These are a handful of things that I'm good at. And when I put them together, very few people in the world exist that are both decent and enjoy these things when combined, which also frees your mind to think about, you're reminding me about innovation in the industries. And not only will a career or a certain work path exist in the few years, but what's happening right now where you see your talent stack, where can you plug in right now so that regardless of how innovation comes and changes the world around us, your stack of abilities will always be in demand. I wonder if that's something that you see students struggle with, or when their eyes are open to it, is that something that it's an aha moment for them and it delights them about planning for the future rather than being sort of this terrifying unknown?
It actually excites them, you know, because they realize things about themselves that either they didn't realize, or they're like, you know, I thought about that about myself, but until I saw it, either, you know, in a profile or something else, they're like, it actually, it starts giving them purpose, you know, and that's what it, you know, my son actually once said a few years ago, a life without purpose isn't a life. And finding your path after high school is about finding your purpose, you know, for the next 4, you know, 6, 10 years, that is going to motivate you and excite you.
That's good. I like that. That's you've got a wise son. So how then, as you're putting these things together, whether it's for you mentioned a profile, or it's notes to yourself, thinking out loud, it's mind mapping your future after high school, all of this involves talking and writing about yourself, thinking about what you do, and then how you present that to other people. So it's going to be, if you're shadowing somebody that's a firefighter and you're interested in that, you're going to shadow them and figure out, oh, okay, that's what you need to be able to communicate with that person and ask intelligent questions to learn, is this in fact the path for me? Or you're gonna shadow a city planner and figure out, is this the path for me? So you've got to be able to describe what you like, what you're interested in, and how it relates to the world around you. And then as you're learning things, add that to your vocabulary, and then be able to turn those into questions. So how should students be talking and writing about themselves? They're young, so they don't have decades of experience in a particular industry. But thinking of high schoolers in particular, what advice do you give them in terms of just communications and presenting themselves to others?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I actually tell them to journal, or, or do a mind map, or talk, like for me, it's easier for me to talk versus write. So I will start talking and have it transcribed, so then I can go edit. But, looking at when you enjoy something, or you see a strength in yourself, so for example, if a teen is like, I love brainstorming, and what is it about it that I love about brainstorming? And what are some situations where I've had to help brainstorm, and what parts of that did I love, and why did I love it, and how did my effective skills in brainstorming affect the end result? So it's almost, I think of it as a standpoint of, in every interview question, and even in college essays, you have to highlight your greatest strengths. And by understanding your greatest strengths will help you identify jobs you love. And by journaling or keeping track of situations is also going to help you when you write that college essay or have that job interview. When someone asks you, what are your greatest strengths? It's like, well, brainstorming is one of my greatest strengths. So let me tell you why. It's because in this situation, such and such. So does that answer your question?
It does. And you also remind me, I would pile on that and say that a version of journaling could be sketchbooking for the artists who just, if it's not writing or speaking, just draw, make pictures. Maybe those little pictures need captions to describe something, but even if you're not looking for a career in some type of arts, that can be easier to channel your brain depending on how you're wired. So, I'm completely with you on these ideas. Just speaking, recording voice notes, writing, it could be long paragraphs, it could be bullet points, or it could just be sketchbooks. Just getting those ideas onto paper or out into space and recording them is vital. It's another thing that I feel myself wanting to say after every point you make, I wish all the grown-ups did this stuff.
Yeah. I'm someone who, I have to talk it out. So when I'm working on something and I'm sitting here going, I don't know what to say, I'll call up a friend and say, I just need to talk it out. And within like that, I have my answer. I'm like, okay, I'm good. So even just talking with your friends, so don't feel like you have to sit there in front of your screen and go, okay, what are my greatest strengths? And again, if you journal it, as I teach teens I work with, it's like, if you learn this skill now, it's a great lifelong skill, because as adults, we go for job interviews and we know we're going to get the question, what are our greatest strengths, but we still have a deer in the headlights look.
So speaking of adults, in the time that you've spent one-on-one with students, what's something, even if it's just one thing, what's something that parents need to know about what their kids are going through in this thinking about life after high school, the next steps?
You need to really listen and honor what they're telling you or not telling you. Have conversations with them, gain agreement about life after high school. If your teen says, well, I really want to go to Stanford. Okay, well, why do you want to go to Stanford? What is it about Stanford? Maybe the parent may not be able to afford Stanford and have to say, that's great, and just have those conversations. Or if your teen, if you, as a parent, you say, gosh, I think you should be a teacher, go to school in teaching, say, have you thought about this career? What do you think you would like? What wouldn't you like? And they're like, well, I really don't think I'd like it because of XYZ. Okay, great. What careers do you think? So it's really having those conversations, and don't wait till their junior or senior year to have them. You want to have them starting in your freshman year, because otherwise you might miss opportunities like dual enrollment or other things.
That's great advice. Laurie, I appreciate your time. Tell us quickly where people should go online, the wonderful internet, to find out more about My Ideal College.
Yeah, so if you go to myidealcollege.org, that's myidealcollege.org, you can learn about more what we do. I have lots of blogs out there covering all different types of topics as it relates to college. So, go in there and get some ideas, get some inspiration about what you need to be, what you as a teen and a parent need to be doing to create the best path after high school.
Great, I appreciate it, Laurie. And students that are listening, spikeview.com is where you go to start your portfolio and start putting into action all these bits of great advice that Laurie had for you today. Thanks for your time, Laurie.
Thank you.